Welcome back to our channel. In the churn of machines at the U.S. Mint in 2004, countless coins clinked and clattered into bins, their surfaces gleaming with uniformity. The Roosevelt dime, ever since its introduction in 1946, had become an unnoticed staple in American pockets. Its small, consistent design a whisper among louder denominations. That year, dimes were produced by the millions at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. It was business as usual. Or so it seemed. 2004 marked no great upheaval in coin design, no celebrated anniversary, no official statement that would shake numismatic circles. Just Roosevelt, stoic as always, with torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse, a testament to liberty, peace, and strength. The presses ran, the dies struck, and coins flowed into circulation like rainwater into a storm drain. Quiet, efficient, predictable. But in that blur of automation and precision, something went wrong subtly, invisibly, at first. Not an error that would scream its presence, but one that would wait, patient and almost proud in its obscurity. For months, it passed unnoticed, rattling in pockets, dropped into vending machines, slipped into tip jars. Then, one day, in a modest kitchen in Ohio, a collector who had never considered himself lucky held it in his hand. He hadn't meant to examine it. Not really. It was just a dime he'd fished from a bowl near the sink while looking for change for a morning coffee. He turned it over without much thought, eyes barely registering the familiar pattern, until he noticed something strange about the lettering. The words looked faint, ghostly even, as though the coin had only half committed to being real. He blinked, leaned closer. The date read clearly, 2004. But the letters of United States of America and one dime were disturbingly soft, barely there. He rubbed at the coin, expecting dirt. But the anomaly didn't budge. He tried another dime from the bowl. Perfectly crisp. And another. No issue. But this one, it looked as if it had slipped through time, only half formed. He set it aside. Something tugged at him. A whisper, barely audible, but persistent. Look again. Later that night, under the kitchen light, he used a magnifier. That's when he saw it. Not just the lettering, there were ripples in the surface, a strange warping near the torch's flame. The texture felt wrong too. It didn't have the usual sharpness he'd come to expect from a modern dime. It was smooth in places it shouldn't be, and too coarse in others. It was as if the die had been worn out or misaligned, or perhaps something more subtle had happened. He wasn't a novice. He'd collected since the late 80s. He had seen die cracks, clipped planchets, even a dramatic off-center penny that once sold for nearly $500. But this was something else. Too soft to be a typical misstrike. Too odd to ignore. He posted a picture online in a small coin collectors forum. Responses trickled in slowly. Some dismissed it. Others were intrigued. One veteran user messaged him privately. "You might have something special. I've only heard rumors of this kind of strike from 2004. You need to get it graded." He hesitated. The coin wasn't flashy. It didn't shout. But those whispers were growing louder. 2 weeks later, he held the slab in his hands. PCGS had authenticated the coin. "Missing clad layer obverse," the label read. He stared at those words, feeling the weight of their meaning. The dime had been struck on a planchet that had lost its outer nickel layer on the front, revealing the copper core beneath. This was rare, unintended, unrepeatable, and yet something nagged at him. The back of the coin was fine, perfectly normal, but the front, Roosevelt's profile, looked like it had been carved from bronze. It was uncanny, unsettling even. Two sides of the same coin, but as if belonging to different eras. He dug deeper. And what he found only deepened the mystery. In 2004, reports had surfaced of similar errors in a limited batch, almost exclusively out of Denver. It wasn't widespread. Most collectors had never seen one in person. Some dismissed them as damaged coins, others as flukes. But those who knew, really knew, were quietly hunting them. At first, The market didn't move. One sold for $30, another for $45. But over time, whispers became chatter, and chatter turned to buzz. An example surfaced at a coin show in Dallas and sold for $110, then $200. A year later, one in pristine condition fetched nearly $700 at a silent auction. He held onto his, watched, waited. The value didn't follow a straight line, it rose in fits and starts, unpredictably, like the coin's very nature. 1 month, a dime would sell for $400. Then silence. 3 months later, another would ignite a bidding war. The inconsistency only fed the legend. But there was something his coin had that the others didn't. A tiny detail he hadn't noticed until much later. Beneath Roosevelt's chin, in the normally featureless space of the field, there was a strange depression. At first, he thought it was a contact mark. But under magnification, he saw the outline of a letter. Not engraved impressed. Backward. Almost as if another coin had been struck atop it during the minting process. He was looking at a blockage. Now his heart began to pound. A missing clad layer on the obverse and a partial blockage? That was no longer just an error. It was a coin born from chaos, a moment where the minting process had truly gone off the rails. No one could replicate that. He submitted it again, this time with detailed photos and documentation. Weeks passed, and when it returned, the new label stunned even him. Obverse missing clad layer W/partial blockage, mint error. Only a handful of such coins had ever been confirmed. And never, not once, on a 2004 dime until now. The offers began quietly. A private buyer reached out, offering $2,000. He declined. Months later, another offer $3,800. Again, he refused. It wasn't about the money anymore. Not entirely. This coin had become a story, a mystery, a singular echo of a moment lost in the machinery of the mint. Then came the twist. While cataloging dimes at a regional coin show in 2011, he overheard a dealer mention a box of oddities, coins too strange to price, too confusing to list. Among them, a man had found another 2004 dime with a similar error. Not exact, but eerily close. Same year. Same missing clad layer. No blockage, but with a reverse that looked double-struck. The collector's pulse quickened. He tracked down the coin. Held it. Compared the weight. Identical. Surface color? Nearly the same copper hue on the obverse. Mint mark? Also Denver. What if, he wondered, there had been a run of flawed planchets? A small batch that somehow slipped through, processed during a transitional week when die maintenance was behind schedule, when inspection faltered, when something in the vast mint ecosystem hiccuped for a moment. If true, these weren't isolated errors. They were siblings. A scattered handful of coins forged in the same unrecorded accident. And every single one that emerged added a layer of complexity and value. By 2015, certified examples began appearing in auction catalogs. Some with faint missing layers, others with die clashes. One was listed in a heritage auction with an estimate of $4,000. It sold for $6,200. And with each sale, the legend of the 2004 dime error solidified. No longer a whisper, now a chorus. The collector still kept his. Not out of reluctance, but out of reverence. He had been the first to see its potential. To recognize the ghost in the copper, the distortion in the design, the delicate balance between flaw and fascination. And every time he looked at it, he was reminded that sometimes the smallest things carry the most profound mysteries. By 2020, numismatic circles began referring to it as the Copper Roosevelt, a nickname that captured its visual essence and hinted at its anomalous birth. Dealers began including disclaimers in listings not to be confused with standard missing clad layer errors. The 2004 variant is uniquely rare. Specimens that had once sold for under $100 were now pushing past 5 figures if they could be authenticated. And that was the catch. Most examples were damaged coins misrepresented as errors. Only a select few had the pedigree, the certification, the documented provenance. The collector's coin, with both missing clad layer and partial brockage, now stood at the pinnacle. Quietly, discreetly, an offer landed in his inbox. $14,000. Private transaction. No questions asked. He didn't respond. Instead, he pulled the coin from its velvet-lined case and turned it over in the light. Two sides, two textures. Copper and nickel. Shadow and clarity. An accidental masterpiece. The machines at the mint had returned to normal. The presses no longer made mistakes like this. Technology had advanced. Quality control had tightened. But no algorithm could unmake history. No system could erase the handful of coins that slipped through the cracks, carrying with them the memory of a moment when perfection faltered and something extraordinary was born. And for those who seek, who watch, who notice the unusual curve of a letter, the odd shimmer in a metal surface, the 2004 dime serves as a reminder that even among billions, one coin, just one, can change everything.